Aloha, everybody. Oh, wow, that's cool. Can you hear me? All right, cool. And you can see me, right? All right, well, good afternoon and aloha to everybody. Again, I'm Congressman Ed Case. I represent Hawaii's 1st Congressional District. My district runs from Honolulu all the way to Mililani and to Kapolei, 700 plus thousand people. But long history of our congressional delegation is that we all represent the whole state. And so I consider that I represent everybody in our state focused on my district. I'm unfortunately coming to you from my Capitol Hill office in Washington, D.C. And again, I want to extend my sincere apologies to each and all of you for not being with you personally, as I very much intended to be. As you may have seen and know, this is a very, very difficult congressional schedule that we have. We've been through a lot of turmoil in Congress over the last couple of weeks and couple of months. And this was originally supposed to be a very clear work period back home, and we scheduled this and sent out notice. And we had to vote yesterday, as I think you saw from the note that I turned out just really, really difficult to get home, if not impossible. And so we had to kind of adjust on the fly because we didn't want to cancel this, and we didn't want you to come down here and have a sign saying we weren't doing it. This is second best from my perspective, but hopefully it will do. I am joined today by several members of my great staff who I think you were probably introduced to already. Here in DC, helping me out is Major Lauren Cooper of the U.S. Air Force. She's on assignment to my office for 1 year under a special program that we run with the Department of Defense. She does my Veterans Affairs here in DC. And there in Hawaii, you have Tim Nelson, my Chief of Staff, who is very much involved with me up in DC, but who is down in Hawaii to check in with folks. This year, his particular specialty is our military. We also have Nestor Garcia, who you all already heard from, as well as Kara Emting and Julia Anashevska, who are with my Honolulu DC, my Honolulu office. And they are all there to help you personally listen in on this, obviously, but they're there to help you as well. Just let me cover the logistics. I think Nestor may have done some of this. This is another of my open live talk stories for and with you. I spend somewhere around half the year in Washington, D.C. I spend about 5 months a year back home, and it's critical to me to do my job here in D.C. that I am always able to stay in touch with folks back home. And so whenever I am home, I try to get out and about to listen to what the concerns are, to communicate what I'm up to, and to compare notes. And in this one particular talk story, usually my talk stories are general talk stories, but in this one, as we're coming up on Veterans Day, and as we have so many issues having to do with our veterans throughout our country and Hawaii, I wanted to do one that's very, very specific to our Hawaii veterans. So as with my other talk stories, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time reporting to you and then going to your questions. We have a lot of critical issues in our country today. We're obviously dealing with very, very difficult issues internationally with Ukraine and now Israel, dealing with critical issues here in our country and obviously in Hawaii with Maui, et cetera. And I'm happy to address all of these other issues with you if you want to bring them up during your questions. But what I want to do is to focus very much on our veterans, because that's the purpose of this talk story. We're also broadcasting live on Facebook Live, and so if you have a question, please put them into the comments, and my staff will get the questions to me, and I'll try to answer them during our question period. We're going to need to end at 10:30, just logistically and for other reasons. My staff will stick around as long as you need them there, and you can always get back to us with further questions and requests for information or assistance through case.house.gov, or ed.case@mail.house.gov. I think you have all that information, or call my district office. So there's a lot of ways for you to do that. I always like to kind of start my talk stories by talking about my mission here in Congress. I consider that I have a mission, and there's 3 parts to my mission. The first one is to contribute to national leadership for our country and our world. That's my basic constitutional duty, is to be a representative of you, for you here in Congress, to make the decisions that we need to make for our country and for our country's standing in place and outreach to the rest of the world. My second part of my mission is to assure that our Hawaii needs are met by our federal government. We have a lot of needs in Hawaii, like any state, but we have some very, very unique needs given our unique characteristics. And my job is to take care of those needs, or at least from a federal perspective, to see what the federal government can do to help us out. And then the third part of my job is equally critical. My mission is to assist you with your individual concerns. We sometimes refer to that as casework. And we call it that because we actually open a case and we try to solve your problem for you. There's many of these areas with our veterans. So again, mission, national leadership, help Hawaii, help you. And each of these missions have a lot to do with our veterans. I could take any one of these and talk through our veterans issues at the national leadership level, at the Hawaii specific level, and then finally, a lot of our work on individual concerns is veterans related, and so that's very much relevant. And you know, we always say to our veterans, especially on Veterans Day, that we are so deeply grateful for your service. And I say to you today, as your representative, that I'm deeply grateful for your service, and thank you again. But those are words, those are expressions of gratitude, and our country has undertaken obligations to our veterans, and those need to be fulfilled. And so, although I do feel a deep sense of gratitude, I also feel a deep sense of obligation to deliver on the promises, on the needs, and on the undertakings that we have undertaken for our veterans and your ohana. And in Congress, I try to do that through a couple of means to actually work on veterans issues. The number one, by far, area that I'm able to help our veterans is through our U.S. House Committee on Appropriations, which I'm now in my 5th year on appropriations. The Appropriations Committee is responsible for all of our federal funding. We split funding up into mandatory funding that will happen regardless, like Social Security, some of our veterans benefits, and discretionary funding, which we have to fund every year. Each and every year we go back and fund those programs all over again. The total amount of federal discretionary funding annually is now about $1.7 trillion of annual federal funding, and that all flows through appropriations. And so, as you can imagine, that's a good place for me to try to work on needs, to exert influence, to target specific issues, to fund them. But it's not only about funding, it's also about the ability to oversee all of those programs, the ability to ask the questions necessary to make them work, to work with our partners to assure that the needs are being delivered. We also on the Appropriations Committee have subcommittees that specialize in an area of government. I served 4 years on our Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Subcommittee, which had responsibility for all veterans affairs. So I've got 4 years of that. This year, I was assigned to the Department of Defense Subcommittee, as well as a subcommittee on Homeland Security. Both of those have aspects of veterans in them, but they obviously are also deeply involved in our active military as well as our other law enforcement agencies. On MILCON VA, as we call it, the Military Construction Veterans Affairs Committee, we were and continue to be responsible for about $150 billion in annual discretionary funding for our veterans directly to the Veterans Administration. Clearly on these other committees, subcommittees, we are responsible for about half of our federal budget. And so I think I'm pretty well positioned there, and I try to use that as much as I can to assist our veterans. I also have solid relationships with our federal Veterans Affairs agencies, and particularly the VA. I've worked with them for 5 years now on the national level through my Appropriations Committee, as well as at the local level. I have a lot of colleagues that I work with here in Washington, D.C., in the U.S. House and in the U.S. Senate on Veterans Affairs, where we try to assist in whatever the issue might be. I'll get into some of those. We have National Veteran Service Organizations, the VSOs, that I work with. And then finally, I've enjoyed really, I think, strong partnerships back in Hawaii with both our state and county governments, as well as our state VSOs, as well as just a whole host of veterans who I've had the honor to work with over the last 5 years. So those are the kind of the tools that I try to use to help veterans wherever I can. Let me talk a little bit about veterans in Hawaii specifically, because the issues that I work on are national issues that have impacts in Hawaii. A good example would be the PACT Act, which we just passed, which was, of course, this has to do with increasing benefits for exposure to toxic substances, one of the major pieces of, if not the major piece of legislation in the last decade at least, for veterans. That's a national law that has clear implications and results and covers veterans in Hawaii. We also have issues that are very specific to Hawaii that are not necessarily covering the whole country, but they get into Hawaii because of our particular veteran population in Hawaii and other aspects. And so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time to kind of review with you some of the veterans community in Hawaii. You'll know a lot of this, but some of this might be surprising. We have now about 113,000 veterans that we know of. I believe that there are more that are not technically in the system and getting tracked, but nonetheless, it's a large population. This is one of the largest populations by pro rata, so percentage of the population of any states in the country. We have about 9% veteran population as opposed to 6% nationally. We have more veterans that are actual military retirees than much of the rest of the country, which creates its own issues. We have a greater percentage of women veterans than the rest of the country. And this number is not only increasing as an overall number, but as a percentage of the veterans population in Hawaii. It's going to grow significantly over the next decades. We have one of the younger veterans populations in the country. We especially have a larger percentage of our veterans that are 18 to 34 than most of the rest of the country. An obvious one, we have an incredible minority veteran population, including Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders with sometimes very unique needs. Our largest group remains our Vietnam era veterans at somewhere around 35% right now, followed by our Gulf War veterans, followed by our Korean veterans. And then, of course, we don't have too many World War II veterans left, but we still do have a significant number, and each of these groups has their own special concerns. We have a very, very large Veterans Administration presence in Hawaii, not only because of the number of veterans, but because we're a regional headquarters for VA out into the Pacific. We have fully 26 VA facilities across the state. These range from healthcare facilities to hospitals to cemeteries. We have somewhere around 50,000 enrollees in the Veterans Affairs healthcare system in Hawaii, and total Veterans Affairs, Veterans Administration expenditures in Hawaii, so for all veterans benefits and related activities. So healthcare benefits would be the largest, educational benefits, business benefits where they're available, the whole range, and including military construction, veterans construction, about $1.2 billion a year. So this is a huge expenditure and obviously finds its way into our local economy as well. The bottom line here is that our veterans population is in some ways similar to our national veterans population with similar issues, but in some areas we have needs for very, very special focus and some very, very unique areas that need just a lot of extra attention. So that's kind of a big picture of my mission, how I try to get it done for veterans and the community that I represent of veterans. Now what I want to do is just talk about a couple of the issues that we face and we're working on for our veterans. There are many, many issues that I could cover here today. I'm only really going to scratch the surface. So what I wanted to do was to highlight just a few that are kind of top of mind for me, or that illustrate some of the areas that we are working with you to assist our veterans, kind of just flag a couple of others, and then I'm sure that there will be very specific questions, and I can get to those during our Q&A session. So with that, let me highlight 4 or 5 issues, and then a few others, and then turn this over to you for your questions. The top issue we have, and always will have, and always have had, is all of these programs require funding, and we need to fund them. And as our veterans population grows, and as our veterans population receives benefits that we should be providing, like the PACT Act, and as some of those benefits do get more expensive, especially in the healthcare space, we need to pay for those benefits. I mentioned already that annually we spend somewhere in the range of $150 billion a year now, and that has increased each year that I've been here in Congress. We are trying to get it increased again this year by another percentage that will meet the need. The majority of that is for veterans medical care, we have clear overall medical care, but we also have very specific and critical needs for increased care in a couple of areas. I would cite mental health care as one of those, where we need to expand our programs. Suicide has continued to be a tragedy among our veterans, absolutely unacceptable. And we have had to, and we should, increase both programs and funding for suicide prevention for our veterans. We have increasing needs in homeless assistance, homelessness among our veterans, which still is at unacceptable levels. And finally, substance disorder treatment. So these are areas of our veterans medical care that are really needing to be much more fully funded and administered, that require that focus on the funding. We have other areas that are critical for our veterans as well. One would, for example, be in the healthcare area, a very, very complex and thus far, to be honest, disappointing conversion in our medical system, the electronic health records, so that veterans can move throughout the country with a seamless healthcare system, that their medical records are readily available. We've been trying to convert for over a decade now. We've got some pretty good test sites up, working pretty well, but we're way behind schedule and way behind budget, or way over budget, I should say, but we have to finish that. We also have needs for our veterans facilities, and we'll get to that a little bit later, where we've got some really good news in Hawaii, but the rest of the country also needs significant reinvestment in our our veterans healthcare facilities. We also have to fund the PACT Act. That was the right thing to do. We are doing it, and it is very expensive to extend that level of compensation to our veterans who suffered from toxic substance exposure. But we are doing it separately from our line budget, and we're going to continue to do that. So the challenge here is that we have programs that I think are the right programs. We need to fund them, and we're in a very challenging fiscal environment, as you have seen. We can get into that if you want. But thus far, Congress has prioritized veterans programs and veterans funding. And as I mentioned, we have increased it consistently throughout my time here, and I believe we will continue to meet those needs. But it's going to be an ongoing challenge given the fiscal environment. Okay, number 2, I want to talk about the PACT Act. This was our law that was passed in October of 2022 to expand eligibility for toxic exposure during periods of service and over periods of service in very specific geographic areas to include Vietnam and Southeast Asia, as well as the Middle East, by providing for presumptive coverage. And this has been not only, as I said, historic earlier, not only the right thing to do, long delayed, but we've also had to roll out a big effort to reach veterans and to get them into the system and to get the care to them that they need and deserve. The effort that I've been engaged in, aside from just maximizing federal funding to make sure that the PACT Act is fully funded, is to make sure that our veterans know about claims submission deadlines and that they get their claims in so that they can be evaluated, be processed, and be determined and get that care. The stats are pretty good so far. We've got, and I don't have these broken down for Hawaii, but we've got about 1.1 million claims that were submitted under the PACT Act. About 4.6 million veterans are receiving now toxic exposure screenings, or actually, in some case, getting new toxic exposure screenings. We've had about $2.5 billion of claims for toxic exposure already paid out. So we're on a good track, but there's a number of challenges that we're facing. First of all, there are legislative proposals to expand the scope of the PACT Act, and certainly I'm very open to those. Number one. Number two, I already talked about federal funding. And number three, I definitely want to make sure that our veterans are into the system. The advice here is that, and some of these deadlines have passed, but the advice for the deadlines that have not passed is still, if you think you possibly could have a claim, file, then we'll figure out the rest of it later on. I want to highlight women veterans. I talked a little bit earlier about the number of women veterans being higher in our Hawaii, and the fact that that's going to grow substantially over the next years and decades, both overall and as a percentage of our veterans population. This rapid increase is coming with requirements in our veterans system that are very specific to women that frankly are taking some time to adjust to, because our system, in all honesty, was not geared to this level of women veteran needs. Now we're doing a good job, I think, of identifying the issues and expanding those programs. But clearly, we need to continue this work with our women veterans. And by the way, this is also true of our wounded warrior women veterans who suffered disproportionately to their male counterparts in very specific areas of wounded warrior consequences. And so we need to think not only about overall care for our women veterans, but also care for our veterans who suffered from wounds of all kinds during their service and after. But the specialized areas are pretty straightforward. I mean, we need women-specific healthcare, including mental health that is specific to women. We certainly need to focus on women-specific veteran business assistance. And then finally, childcare, where the impact falls disproportionately on women. So for me, this is a big area to make sure we get the women veterans side of this right, not just for our country, but for our Hawaii. Another area that I always worry about for Hawaii is more unique to Hawaii, but that is what are the consequences of running a veterans benefits system in a state that is 2,500 miles away from the rest of the country, or most of the rest of the country, and a state that not only is that far away out in the Pacific, but is itself a collection of islands. We've seen the consequences of this in a couple of different areas. Number one, oftentimes our mileage reimbursements to get to the VA hospital, believe it or not, are not built on the fact that we can't just drive everywhere in the state. We do have airplanes that we have to get on. So that's always a struggle to get that right. And then finally, and we saw this during COVID, the growth in expansion in telehealth in the VA system has been a very, very good story. even before COVID, the VA was leading in the area of telehealth. But now that we've had COVID and we've seen that it actually can work, we're trying to lock in a lot of those gains and expand them for telehealth, which is very good, of course, for Hawaii generally and for our veterans as well, because there's a much better access to care overall. So that is women veterans. And then a good story. We, of course, have to focus not only on programs and funding, but on facilities, because so many of our programs and funding require capacity, employees, and facilities. And there we have very good news. We have some projects that many people probably in this room, and certainly me and my congressional delegation colleagues from Hawaii have worked on for literally years. We have the Daniel K. Akaka State Veterans Home in Kapolei, which is going to be completed for construction in January of 2024 and open in the summer of 2024. 120-bed long-term care facility at about $100 million federal funding contribution. I'm going to ask Tommy Driscoll to summarize this a little bit more when I'm Pau. So I won't get into the details on this. He'll say who he is and where he's entered into it, and perhaps give you a better report on this and answer any questions. We also have the Daniel K. Akaka VA Clinic, Federal Veterans Administration Clinic that is under construction in Kalaeloa. That's going to double the capacity of our VA Pacific Islands healthcare system. Also scheduled to complete in January 2024, and they're trying to start to open it up for business with our veterans in April of 2024. Both great projects. I've been to visit both of them throughout the last couple of years, and every time I see them, it's kind of inspiring to know that they're coming out of the ground and will be with us all soon. Those are some of the issues that I just wanted to kind of highlight in my veterans portfolio here. I'm just going to tick off a bunch of other issues that I'm working on, just to give you a flavor of what's on my desk. Tripler Hospital, great history, but it is at end of life, and we need to decide how to, as they say, recapitalize it, meaning what are we going to do? Are we going to go in and improve the existing facility? Are we going to start over again? We're going to remaster plan it. We've had problems with parking for years, which hopefully the new VA clinic in Kalaeloa will alleviate. But that's certainly on my radar. That's a project that we have worked through operations to accelerate that analysis and those decisions, but that's going to be a big decision when we get to it. The Mission Act, which is our attempt in the VA healthcare system to expand coverage beyond the VA system to outside specialists, wherein as needed and possible. We need to implement that in Hawaii still. That has had a problem in terms of implementation. It's been complicated by medical record transfers and other issues, but it's on my plate for sure. Very specific Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander issues. There are parts of the VA, the Veterans Administration, that just affect this community differently for various reasons than others. Sometimes it's a matter of healthcare disparities. Sometimes it's just a matter of our local style and local culture. But we've always got to watch that we are making sure that these big national VA programs, one-size-fits-all programs, actually do work for our communities in Hawaii. Veterans housing, a critical issue, along with housing for everybody in Hawaii, but specifically for our veterans. We have federal programs such as the Housing and Urban Development VA housing program, which we call HUD-VASH, which works for many of our veterans, but has its own issues. Those are always on my table. Veteran cemeteries. We have limited VA cemeteries, and we make up for that by doing partnerships with our state cemeteries throughout the state. But it's coming time where we have to think more seriously about that next generation of VA cemetery beyond the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. We're working on that. Making sure that our veterans have access to counseling that will help them through the process, including legal services, is on my plate. I already talked a little bit about this, but I always worry about rural healthcare initiatives for our veterans. It's simply different if you're not in the big city. If you're out in rural areas of our country, including Hawaii, veteran needs, how you deliver them is different. We have many, many veterans beyond Hawaii out in the Pacific. These are some of the most incredible folks that have served our country, and from places like Samoa and Palau, Guam, the Northern Marianas, and they have very specific needs, and I try to partner with their representatives to help their needs. We have the Major Richard Starr Act, which is of importance to many of you. This would provide for concurrent receipt of both disability compensation and regular Social Security for combat disabled veterans. This has been, I'm a co-sponsor of that bill. It has been kind of bottled up here in Congress for a while. We're trying to get it free. And then finally, I'll just mention another area that I hope you'll all think about, and that is the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress is our national library. It's Congress's library, and they have been running a Veterans History Project for a long time now, in which they collect veterans' stories. And my father, who's a World War II veteran, gave his story to the Library of Congress as part of the Veterans History Project. Many, many others have done that also. Your story doesn't have to be, way, unique or anything like that. It's just a story of the veterans who have served our country and of their individual part of our country's history that we want to collect here. And so we can give you information on that if you're willing to do it. It's very simple, really. Okay, those are some of the issues that I am dealing with. The last thing I want to highlight before I get to your questions is to go back to casework just for a second. So you remember that that's part of my that's one of the three parts of my mission, along with national leadership and helping Hawaii, is helping you with your individual concerns. We, as I already mentioned, get a lot of requests from veterans and their ohana for assistance in the veterans area because, number one, we have a lot of veterans, and because, number two, sometimes the veterans system can be quite complicated. And frankly, sometimes the VA and others can make mistakes, or, claims can get lost, or sometimes they just don't see it the right way. And our job is to assist you to get answers to your questions and or resolution on your claims. I can't get them to, change the law. I can't get them to apply the law in a different way to you than they're applying it to everybody else, although I can, in that case, try to get the law changed. If there's, I can't change the result, I suppose I could say, but I can certainly make sure that you are treated fairly, that your claim is fairly treated, and that they take a full look at the reasons why they made a decision and reconsider. And that's completely within my kuleana and something we offer. We've been able to help a lot of veterans with very specific issues, and they range across the board from just getting answers to status on claims to getting, some of our federal government folks to take another look where we think they've made a mistake. We've been able to get medical records that back up VA claims where maybe it's difficult for you to get those medical records, or service records, I should say. So the bottom line here is, if you have an issue with anything having to do with your veterans benefits and you don't think you're getting satisfaction, please give us a call and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Again, we do this on a routine basis for all of our constituents, and the folks that are there from my office with you now are the folks that actually help us on that. And they are pretty good at it nowadays. So take them up on it at the contact information, or you can leave your name and information there and they'll get back to you next week. All right, that completes my introductory remarks, which as usual went too long. I covered some of our logistics. I covered kind of an overview of my mission, how I try to get my job done for our veterans. I tried to describe to you the community and the specific areas that I think are particularly needing attention. We covered some very specific issues from funding to the PACT Act, women veterans, island state veterans, and then finally we talked about some capacity facilities and some other issues. And now it's time for me to turn this over to you. If you could very kindly just try to get your question nice and tight, because again, we're going to have to get off at 10:30. With that, I'm going to turn it to my staff, and I think we have Mr. Driscoll up. If you are there, Tommy, if you could please kind of say who you are and give the folks an update on our two great new facilities.
Thank you, Representative Case. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Tommy Driscoll. I'm a Vietnam veteran, 70% disabled, retired colonel, U.S. Army, MSC, and I've been receiving my health care for over 30 years from the VA Pacific Island Healthcare System and from Triple Army Medical Center. My current position is the healthcare coordinator for the Hawaii Office of Veterans Services. In that regard, I'm responsible for oversight on the construction of one of the two facilities that Representative Case mentioned. That's the Daniel K. Akaka State Veterans Home that's under construction in Kapolei. First thing I want to say is to reiterate what I think you heard. Thank you, Representative Case, for the work that you've done to bring in this facility and other facilities that were mentioned. Without that support at the national level, we wouldn't be having these opportunities for our veterans that are under construction at this time. As far as this particular facility is concerned, it's open to all veterans statewide. As the representative said, we have over 100,000 veterans in our state, over 40,000 are 65 and over. Ostensibly, it'll be available more so for Oahu veterans, but again, open for all veterans in our state. This is an artist rendering of an aerial view here of the facility now under construction. Also, it's available for spouses of veterans and available for Gold Star parents. There will be admission standards that are set up for this particular facility, and fundamentally, a veteran, a resident of Hawaii, an honorable or a general discharge, and in need of long-term care. By that I mean skilled nursing care, intermediate care. It's a long-term care facility. This facility will have 3 missions. Number 1, what I just mentioned, taking care, long-term care, offering skilled nursing care. Number 2, rehabilitation. A major component of this facility will be contributed toward physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all types of rehab to get our veterans back home again. Hopefully, that's a major effort and push. Third thing, not on the day 1 opening, but we will be offering adult day care. Within the United States of America, there are 161 state veterans homes currently open now. Of those, 3 offer adult day care. One of those 3 is the first Hawaii State Veterans Home, which is in Hilo. I was President CEO of the Hawaii Health Systems Corporation, which I first had the honor to work with a representative here in the State House. And we built that home in 2007. It opened, and it was run by a contractor, an experienced contractor with contract employees. I mention this to you because state veterans homes are not federal. They are state. They are state-owned. They are state-operated. But just like the Hilo State Veterans Home, Daniel K. Akaka here on Oahu will be operated by an experienced contractor who we're currently in the process of selecting right now, request for proposal, and contract employees. And that's important because this is going to be a self-sustaining facility. Unlike what you read in the paper all the time, got to go back to the ledge, got to get more money, can't keep it open, need more money to operate. This facility will be self-sustaining. It will actually draw down per diem rates for veterans in these beds from the big VA. It will be able to also include Medicaid, where that's opportunity available, Medicare, self-pay, and again, there will be an opportunity on a limited basis, not more than 25% for veteran spouses and for Gold Star parents. The opportunity for us is important because we are underserved here in Hawaii. We're the most underserved state in terms of long-term care beds available to those 65 and over. That includes our veterans. And this will be a special opportunity. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the number 268. What that is, every state has an authorized number of state veteran home beds where these per diems can be paid. Our Gila facility is 95 beds. Daniel Keakaka coming up in Kapolei, like the representative said, a beneficial occupancy in January, open for patient intake in the summer of 2024. 95, 120, 268. We got 53 beds left over that we're not using. We put in an application, it has been accepted, and we are in the process of working on a third state veterans home for Maui, most probably in the vicinity of Kahului. We're going to add 7 beds to that because 60 is a very important number. A long way to go. We'll need that state match to go with the federal and land and a lot of other actions, but it's an ongoing action, and the application is in, and we're working on it. I think, Representative Case, those are more than enough details. I'll be here for questions for the group, and I'll remain after the meeting if there are any questions specifically you'd like to come to me with. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you all for your service. God bless.
Thank you so much, Tommy. That's a great update, and we obviously want these facilities to work and to be used fully because we have a lot of needs out there. And it does highlight one part of I made a comment earlier that I have a lot of good partners in terms of addressing our veterans issue and caring for our veterans. And one of my critical partnerships is with the state of Hawaii, because the state of Hawaii has a full-on Office of Veterans Services that Governor Ige that I worked with, and now Governor Green, very, very close partnership. It really takes a lot of very good partners to get veterans services right, and I really appreciate the partnership with the state and with my other partners. I wanted to invite, recognize one other person that's here, and that is, she's going to get embarrassed, but Kendra Oishi. Kendra is the district chief for my now partner in Congress, Representative Jill Tokuda, and she is there. She is here to, I guess, listen in as well. But also, everything that I've talked about it has related in one way or another to, especially for Hawaii, to very good partnerships with my congressional delegation colleagues, Senators Schatz and Hirono. Throughout my entire time here. And then on my side of the hill, as we put it, in the U.S. House, I had Representative Gabbard for my first term, Representative Kahele, and now Representative Tokuda, all of them very strong on veterans issues. And so it's been a great partnership at that level. The other reason Kendra is here is because going back to casework, the general rule is that I need to focus for my casework on my specific constituents, and that's for a good reason, so that constituents that do go to their members of Congress and people don't get all confused about where to go. And so if you do live in the 2nd Congressional, if there's anybody listening who lives in the 2nd Congressional, which again is all of the state other than my district, which goes Makapu'u through Honolulu to the border of Wahiawa and then down to Kalaeloa. So we're talking about Windward, North Shore, and all of the other islands. You should go to Representative Tokuda for your specific needs. So thanks for being there, Kendra. All right. Questions from anybody else? I guess, Kira, are you walking it around?
Mr. Case, my name is Philip Overbeck. I'm an Air Force Reserve retiree, and I went to the VA to get an updated ID card, and they tell me that I am ineligible because I am a reservist. And I just wanted to know why, being a reservist, that we're not eligible to get current ID cards. You have any information on that, or what's the next step?
I don't. That's a surprise to me. We have been going through a difficult process with some of our military bases in terms of access changes for the old form of ID to a real ID card, and we have been very active in terms of trying to question that process and to make sure that it still entitles retirees to the access to the bases that they enjoyed a year ago. But you're telling me that and so if anybody's in that situation, you can certainly contact my office and we'll tell you what we've been up to. We're making some progress, but your situation sounds like it's different. It sounds like they're just outright telling you you're not eligible anymore. And I don't have any information on why somebody that was eligible should no longer be eligible. And so what I'd like you to do, if possible, Philip, is if you could just see one of my staff there. They'll come up to you, and if we can get you into my office, we'll get the facts straight, and we'll ask the question for you to try to get you the best answer. And if they're making a mistake, then we'll get them to correct it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here we go. Congressman, I'm Dennis Hagee. I'm president of Fleet Reserve Association Branch 50. And you may know that there is a VA CBOC co-located at Queens West Hospital campus, that there's no announcement to that effect for any veterans who might be driving by. And apparently there's no intention for the VA to announce that. So that just any veteran or any veteran's family, whether they're in trouble or not, if they have health care issues, might find this a place to go to receive care.
So if I heard you, and I'm sorry, the audio is not quite optimum. So I just want to make sure I understood you. So you're saying that there's a veterans healthcare capacity at Queens West on a co-location basis. Okay, so I got that, but they're not providing any signage for people or advertising for people to go there, and so veterans are not. I mean, they don't know what's available to them. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Now, there's plenty of signage, but it's on the back side of the hospital. So if they could just move the signs out to the street, then any veteran or anybody in any veteran's family, I mean, we per capita, we are #1 in the nation. They will know this is possibly a place where they can go to receive treatment. Thank you.
Okay. I think I understand. Again, if let me find out. I just don't know enough to respond to you right off the top on that issue. I mean, obviously there should be full access and full publicity, and I just need to look into it myself. So if you could, if my staff could see you as well, that would be really helpful to me, and then we can kind of try to get an answer to you. And then if it's something that we need to communicate to the broader community, then we'll look for opportunities to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think the best you can do for us is to direct the local VA to move their signs from the back side of the hospital to the street side of the hospital, and the problem will be solved. Thank you very much, if you can do that.
So I don't know why, but I can't hear you very well. It's not your fault. It's our audio. I'm trying to figure out whether what I will do is I'm gonna do let's try one more person. And if it's still this way, I'm gonna do kind of an on-the-fly adjustment, and we're gonna have one of my staff hold up a phone as well to the microphone so I can hear it on my phone. Okay.
Morning, my name is John.
I don't know why, but I'm just getting a lot of feedback, and it's very, very vague. But let's try it. Nestor, can you talk and see what's happening?
Test. Congressman, can you hear me on this mic? If not, we'll have Kira test on her mic. Kira, you have your mic?
Test, 1, 2, 3.
Can you hear him, Ed?
I'm sorry, did you say? Go ahead, try it again.
Test, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I'm not even hearing you now. So, Kira, can you call me? And if the gentleman could use the mic so that the folks can okay, here we go.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. As long as that mic works so that everybody else can hear his question, I have my phone on, and if you could hold it up so that I could try to hear it from him too. Okay?
All right.
Yes, my name is John. Can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Could you expand on your comment concerning end of life at Tripler, specifically since we got conflicts probably building out there in the Pacific?
Thank you, sir.
Well, I think Tripler is, 70 some odd years old now. And the fact is that that's a long time for a facility to be around. It's much longer than most, and that, that's one of our level 4 hospitals. It's got just so many capabilities. It serves such a broad audience. It's really critical to our active military as well as our vets in conjunction with Spark Matsunaga, which is obviously newer. But Tripler proper is way old for a facility, and we need a Tripler. So we're not talking about not having a Tripler. But we need to think about what's the next generation of Tripler, and so that's what we're trying to work through right now. From all indications, we've done studies of it. Not me personally, but the government, and it's structurally pretty good for a facility of its age. But the internal side of it needs to be pretty much renovated and fixed up to modern medicine. And so we're going through a pretty complicated analysis of, okay, what do you do? Do you keep the structure itself and then renovate the inside, or do you actually start over again? And do you master plan that facility a little bit different? So that's the analysis that we're going. It's a tremendously expensive project, whatever we do, but we have to do it because we're always going to have a need for Tripler. And then I think you had a reference to in relation to facilities elsewhere in the Pacific. If I heard you correctly, was that right?
No.
I'm sorry, are you still there? Kira?
Sorry, we're still.
I was just asking whether I was asking him whether he had a question about. I thought I heard him say in relation to other facilities elsewhere in the Pacific. Was that the question?
No, I was concerned that Tripler was so important because of possible conflicts.
Complex. Right. Okay. I think we got it. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
Congressman, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Michael Brazell. I'm 75 years old. I was stationed on Ford Island in the late 60s. Ever since, my question is this. It's comment and question. Ever since the opioid debacle, legislators have really worked very hard to make it harder and harder because of all the irresponsibility between pharmaceutical companies, physicians, and prescribing and misprescribing. I'm here because I've got enough hydrocodone in my system right now to be walking around and be comfortable enough to be walking around. But it was my own if I didn't advocate for myself, my physicians were afraid to prescribe. And I just wonder, I know that there are a lot of other people I've talked to who the quality of their life is much better now because there are drugs that quell their pain. I'm one of them. Is there any way to mitigate the crackdown that seems to be across the board of people who are suffering? Like it was really, really difficult for me in the last couple of years after taking opioids responsibly to convince physicians that I can be responsible because of the nature of an irresponsible patients, conglomeration of patients and physicians and pharmaceutical companies. I know it's a hard one for you, but it's really, the doctors are afraid to prescribe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been a real dilemma to get right in Congress. We definitely did and still do have an opioid epidemic that has killed over 100,000 Americans. That number is staggering when you think about it. That level of overdose out there, that level of tragedy demanded a lot of action, and the action was in part to try to, crack down, as you put it, on overprescription of opioids, of the ease at which people were getting them, even the doctors that were prescribing them. And I think that the truth is that it had some impact. We are better than we were in this department, but we have not. But we've had a counter result as well. That happens in public policy sometimes. You think you know what you need to do to address something, and then something else happens as a result that maybe you didn't anticipate or you didn't get right. And what we've had in this particular case is that people with significant pain, chronic pain, who have had incredible difficulty accessing relief for that pain, have gone to other drugs and created epidemics there that are sometimes easier to get, sometimes more deadly, some of the fentanyls and that kind of stuff. And so I think I understand what you're saying, and I think we are trying to get it right. I don't think we can just go back to the status quo prior on opioids, because I think they were too easy to get, and people were getting on them way too fast. And as we now know from lawsuits and open admissions by some of the companies, they were trying to get people onto those drugs, and so there was a pretty good business push to get that out there. But we lost sight of people with chronic pain suffering, and we certainly have had to deal with other results from it at this point. And so it'd be interesting to listen. I don't know if you're coming out of the VA healthcare system on that comment or not, but sometimes the VA healthcare system actually is out front of the rest of the country on some of this stuff.
Yes, this is
because it does operate its own system. It's a huge system, and so I'd be curious to know whether your comments are coming out of a VA specific medical experience or healthcare experience.
Yes, Matsunaga.
Okay.
I've been treated through the VA system for the last 25 years in Palo Alto, and now in the last 10 years here in Hawaii, out of Matsunaga. And what I'd like to make you aware of is, are you getting feedback? Can you hear me?
I'm fine. Just Kira, just close to him so I can hear.
Okay. That the pain physicians here, this is the last year I'm speaking about, will try anything, and there are a lot of new so-called therapies that I've been exposed to that the VA is paying a lot of money for. The magnetic belt that I was given for my back pain that was over $1,200, and I let them know that it didn't work, but I'm left with all of these magnetic cartridges and all of the paraphernalia that was sent to me. The same thing, I've gotten 4 different kinds of therapies, none of them as good as the opioid-based medication that I've been taking responsibly. And the VA, the government is paying an enormous amount of money to try to not prescribe. So I'd really like you to look into all of the alternatives that I don't think are very good alternatives.
Yeah. I will look into it. First of all, I'm involved in it already because we have had those discussions here in Congress, both generally and as you talk. I'm certainly recalling hearings that we've had within the VA itself. I will do that, but also if you want us to look into it for you personally, give a, let my staff know, and we can at least ask some of those questions. I don't really know why. I'm sure that there is a reluctance in the VA healthcare system, along with the rest of the system, to go to prescriptions of opioids right away. That's what I was talking about earlier. But if the other stuff isn't working, then obviously that leaves you in a very difficult situation. Thanks.
Thank you, Congressman. Name's Rick Green, active duty 74 to 80, and inactive or active reserve for a few years after that. U.S. Navy. I wanted to touch on a couple of things real quickly that you already spoke about. The first one was on technology in VA, and the second one was PACT Act. Starting with the PACT Act, there's a big, giant, gaping hole in the PACT Act right now related to jet fuel exposures. Congressman from Virginia, Spanberger, last year, she tried to get something done for us, and I think it got sucked up into the PACT Act, and it ended up that the VA just has to give a report within 12 months of passage. Of course, they haven't done that either, but that's, I guess, something else you could look into. From the VA website, health effects may include irritation to unprotected skin, eye, upper respiratory, fatigue, breathing difficulty, headaches, dizziness, and sleep disturbances. I got them all. I submitted a claim. They're in my health records. Denied, lack of service connection. So I'll be appealing. I don't need casework on that. I know what I'm going to do to fix that problem. My problem is all of these things are related to hundreds of thousands of veterans, flight line guys in the Air Force, people on carriers that, they were exposed to the same kind of chemicals that were in burn pits. Burn pits are fine, but I guess they're much healthier if you get them at sea. It's crazy. So that's something I feel needs a lot of attention. Secondly, technology at the VA. Their VA website chatbot is horrible as far as trying to help a veteran to figure out how they need to pursue a claim. And it's ridiculous. I created a website, I created a chatbot that is essentially an artificial intelligence VSO, and it will help guide a veteran all the way through the process, show them how to submit their claim, tell them what they need to do. The VA could do that for us. They should be doing that. By statute, they have to do that, but they're not doing it. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Thank you so much on both counts. I think I said it, we have unfinished business in the area of toxic substance exposure. And I'm sorry we didn't get the jet fuel covered in the PACT Act. That was a very difficult act to get passed. We did get it passed. I don't know the inside story of why that went from a covered situation to a report. I suspect it was some kind of effort to get the thing through Congress. I'll go look at where that report is right now. If the report should have been submitted, it should be submitted. I can definitely do that. there are bills in Congress right now on some of them that would expand the PACT Act. And this is one of those areas, as you point out, there are gaping holes in it. We covered a lot of veterans with what we should have been doing, and it wasn't just the burn pits. It was a number of other areas. So there's very specific chemicals in very specific areas, but that was the great, a large number of our veterans that were exposed. But as you pointed out, I mean, there's whole areas that are not covered yet. And so that's going to be a years-long effort. And I believe that people that were exposed should not have to go through extensive, proof of service connection process. So I hope you rethink the casework side of it. Sometimes we get a result that we don't expect. So please consider whether to use us on at least making your inquiry to see if we can establish service connection to start with. Number one. Number two, I'm not going to defend the VA's technology. I mean, I already talked about electronic health records. I already talked about the Mission Act, which has a lot of technological aspects to it. I have not been on that website, at least recently, that you talked about. You're correct. I don't know why it's such a clunky website, especially in this day and age where you can do a much better one. So that's definitely worth an inquiry from me. So if you want to give my staff or can give my staff the details, although I think we have it already, I think we just need to go check out what you've referred me to and ask the question. I don't really know whether the VA is trying to improve it or not. I suspect they are, because this has come up with in hearings, but it is a tough, big beast to get into the modern age, to be really blunt about it.
Congressman, my name is Stan Fernandez. I'm a past state commander for the Veterans of Foreign Wars for the state of Hawaii. My question is, well, first of all, thank you for your support in the PACT Act. Secondly, my concern is I'm a Vietnam veteran, and there are many Vietnam veterans that were also, we are recognized for Agent Orange. However, many of those that were stationed in Vietnam, in Thailand, were also exposed for the burn pits, and they're not being recognized by the VA. And there are many other people that were, or veterans that were stationed in other areas that also were exposed to burn pits, but the VA does not recognize those people. So my concern is, I believe that the PACT Act should also cover any veteran that were exposed to burn pits, irrespective of being in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the information to see if I can. I'm a little surprised. I thought I thought that the PACT Act did in fact cover burn pits in Thailand, because definitely it did cover exposure to the specific chemicals in the PACT Act. I mean, I'm looking at the map right here, which does include Thailand. So I think what I'd like to do is follow up with you through my staff on that specific question. I assume that what you're saying is correct, because obviously you're speaking for veterans that have been through the process of trying to submit claims, but I am not sure why, if that's correct, we omitted burn pit exposure in Thailand. It's possible that it's more about the chemical that somebody was exposed to as opposed to their geographic service location. But let me just look at that. It's not making sense to me.
Hi, my name is William Griffith. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I have a question. When you see the VA doctor, and then they qualify you as something service connected. And then the VA sends you to CTC. You know what that is? Do you know what that is?
I'm sorry, I'm unmuting to prevent the feedback.
Okay, yeah. Did you understand the first part of the question?
I did,
Okay,
yes.
they send you to CTC. Now your VA doctor you see at least every 6 months. CTC says, no, you're not service connected. How can that, I don't understand that. You're already paying, I think you're paying CTC to say no. And because there's nothing else I can figure out, why am I going to see a CTC when the VA who you pay a doctor and you see all the time says you're service connected? Can you expand on that?
I'm going to have to dig into the details. My understanding is once the VA establishes service connection, you're service connected. So I'm not sure why the VA would tell you which is a process, right? I mean, you've got the doctor is establishing that what exactly your medical situation is, and establishing that it arose from something that happened during your service, and sometimes there's a broader than a doctor inquiry about what actually happened during your service, where you were, what you were exposed to, what the consequences were. Was that particular injury something that happened during, as a matter of an occurrence during your service? But I don't know why somebody outside the VA would be able to overrule a determination on service connection. I don't know. I'm gonna ask my staff there. Tim, do you have any insight on this? Because we can ask the question again. A lot of this is just getting your questions and trying to figure out how to get you an answer. But does any of my staff have a better answer on that?
Says no.
Okay. Let me get your information. Was that specific to your situation, sir? Or is that what happened with you? Okay. If we can get your information, we'll try to get the answer to that. I don't know why you're being required to periodically reprove service connection.
Good morning, Congressman Ed Case. My name is David Ka'aha, and I served in Vietnam, 67 and 68. And I was exposed to Agent Orange and mustard gas. However, the VA does not recognize we being exposed to mustard gas. So I am receiving disability just for being exposed to Agent Orange. Now, I've suffered for many years with Agent Orange. When I first got back from Vietnam, for 13 years I suffered with a relapse of Agent Orange, and then it went away. But years later, when I returned here to Hawaii in 2012, I retired out of California with DOD. And I was suffering tremendously with pains throughout my entire body, and I had to be treated on the outside in the community for my pain. And however, the doctor I had treated me for a year in the community, and then he returned to Queens Hospital. So therefore, I had to go to the VA hospital to be treated. But I mentioned to my doctor that I did not want to have any type of pain medication. So he treated me with physical therapy. And when I went to the VA clinic at Tripler, I was treated with physical therapy, and also I was recommended to go to see an acupuncturist. And I've been going to an acupuncturist for 9 years, and I'm still being treated with physical therapy, chiropractor, and also physical therapy to help me with my pain that I've been suffering. I suffer from head to toe with all kinds of pains that I had sleepless nights. I have sleep deprivation, but however, I have very good physical therapists, acupuncturists, and chiropractor that the VA recommended me to. And so to help with my pain that I suffer daily throughout my entire body, the VA recognized that laser therapy really would help me. And so I've been undergoing laser therapy for my pain that I suffer tremendously. And also, I have an acupuncturist that I've been going to for 9 years to deal with the pain that I suffer with, bone pain, nerve pain, muscle pain, all kinds of pain that I'm suffering from head to toe as a patient that suffered with Agent Orange and mustard gas in Vietnam. I'm sure there's others here in this meeting has suffered with Agent Orange, but I'm not sure they suffered with mustard gas. But however, the VA rejects and does not recognize we've been exposed to mustard gas. Our company were exposed, my company in Vietnam were exposed to mustard gas. And I have guys that served with me in the area that were exposed to mustard gas that wrote a statement to that fact. And so the VA still declines disability for us that were exposed to mustard gas. I know mustard gas was used, the last time it was used in Korea, but it was used in Vietnam. And I'm sorry that if I'm divulging this, but you need to take action on this and find out who else beside myself and those in my unit that was exposed to mustard gas in Vietnam. And it's a tragic tragedy for all of us that has to suffer for the rest of our lives. As we get older, I'm 77 years old, and as we get older, we wreak havoc on our body. And this is uncalled for. Because many of us are still living and still suffering from this dilemma. And I appreciate all that you do for us veterans. And I appreciate for this time we have to come together and share our tragedy in the war that we served in. I appreciate very much this opportunity. And if there's anyone else in this meeting here that is suffering the same thing I'm suffering, because it wreaked havoc on my family over the years. You know, I'm picking up my kids and giving my wife a hard time over the years until 10 years later, I had to apologize to my wife for my behavior, for the drugs that wreak havoc on my body, which affects my family and friends. The way we acted and how we react to our family because of our exposure to Agent Orange and other biological warfare chemicals.
First of all, I'm just so deeply sorry for all that you have said. That I don't really have the words to respond to you. That's not right. It's not right that you were exposed to mustard gas in Vietnam. It's not right what that did to you and to your family, and it's not right that we're not getting the care correct, and it's not right if you're not getting the coverage that you need and deserve, and the full range of treatment. I can't go back and change the initial exposure or all of the years that you've been through, but what I can do is to listen to you and to your story and take the lessons of it. I think my first question, just trying to think through how to help you, is whether in fact you've exhausted the possibilities to establish a service connection, whether in fact the PACT Act does not cover you. I don't. Have you actually applied for? Did you file a claim under the PACT Act?
No, he has not.
Okay. That's one thing that I definitely want to emphasize. And some of those deadlines passed, but I certainly would be in favor of a grace period for folks that didn't get it. So I think the number one thing we need to figure out with you right away, just to try to help you going forward, is can we in fact get you covered under the full range of benefits that I believe you are entitled to? So please, if you'll allow my staff to look into this for you and to help you in terms of the service connection. I guess the second thing I would say is, even if you were not eligible under the PACT Act, still your health consequences and your service connection, I mean, and the fact that they arose during your service, that particular effort, I think, should be taken a look at again, because even if there's not a presumptive connection by federal law, which is what the PACT Act is all about, you don't have to fight that fight. Still, we should be able to try to help you to establish the service connection. And I'll tell you a personal story, very personal. And this has to do with somebody that I'm close to. He worked in an area, military area, where he was exposed. This is many decades ago. In an area where he was exposed to chemicals. He worked in a place that manufactured chemicals in relationship to our military, and contracted a disease later on, many years later, decades later, it was hard to establish the service connection because, number one, the question was, was he actually exposed to those chemicals, and the records were very insufficient. And number two, were those chemicals what caused his I forgot to mention he was in the military at the time. Did those chemicals actually cause his result? And initially, he was denied for a service connection, and we had the case, and we went and investigated it and said, no, what is the possible alternative? Of course he was exposed, and of course those chemicals are known to cause this particular disease, and they did in fact provide a service connection to him. So we want to exhaust that possibility for you. So number one, did you file under the PACT Act, and is it true that that exposure is not eligible? I just want to double check that for you. And then number two, we want to help you to try to go back and take a look at that service connection, because to me, the consequence to your life, I think you said at the beginning it was a 10% connection, or that might have been somebody else, but that seems to be pretty unacceptable to me, to be blunt about it. And then number three, I just want to make sure that you are getting the full range of treatment that you need to make your life a little easier. I agree with you. Many of the therapies that are out there that were at one time resisted by the medical establishment, and acupuncture is a pretty good example of that, bring a lot of relief to a lot of people. And the VA has been pretty good about this, as compare them to Medicare, which is sometimes pretty bad along those lines. But the VA has a long way to go to get the treatments right. So again, I don't know it's very hard for me to accept what happened to you, and I apologize to you from your country for that. But I can try to do what I can right now for you.
Congressman, we have our last question here.
Congressman Aloha Kakahiaka. My name is Ren Kalpiko. I'm a Native Hawaiian veteran. I am here today to ask you, being in this space of the community, knowing that a lot of the data could be much better, if you could inquire with the Office of Minority Veterans for a study on the Native Hawaiian veteran community.
Are you from the Big Island, first of all? Because I know a lot of Kalpikos over there. Are you related?
My ohana is, yes.
That's your ohana?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I kind of grew up down in and around Milili'i, where they're from. So aloha to you and to them. I'm sorry, just to clarify your question, you wanted a study on what? On Native Hawaiian veterans, the business?
No, the Office of Minority Veterans does studies on different ethnic groups, and I was curious if funding allotted for them to do a study on the Native Hawaiian group.
We're actually focused on that already, because I think I said up front that I certainly am focused on our minority veterans in particular, and on including Native Hawaiian veterans. And we've done a bunch of stuff on Native Hawaiian veterans. We've certainly tried, we have a very specific housing program for Native American veterans, including Native Hawaiians, which we have tried to fund that one fully. We also have, I'm just looking through my notes because I want to get this right. And I'm going to ask Tim for some help, and Lauren. Did we not, in our last appropriations cycle, actually ask for a study like what Mr. Kaupico is asking us to do? I don't have it right here in front of me right away.
Congressman, we're currently working on trying to create a center focused on AA and HPI veterans that would allow for studies and examination of alternative care that's culturally appropriate. I believe we had $5 million to start it in fiscal year 23, and we're trying to expand that in fiscal year 24.
Right. I think the other thing we're trying to, I mean, so I agree with the basic, the basic assumption of your question, which is that our Native Hawaiian veterans have very specific needs and very specific goals and impacts. Also, we have disproportionate impacts on our Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander veterans, especially in the healthcare area. By the way, we have a pretty tough time sometimes disaggregating the data. So in other words, splitting it up so that we actually can see, Filipino American veterans and Native Hawaiian versus, other ethnic groups. And so that's kind of the first hurdle we sometimes have is getting ourselves to the actual information that we need. But then after that, especially for Native Hawaiians, because we do have, for the indigenous peoples of our country, including Native Hawaiians, very specific programs, including in the veterans area, in the healthcare, in the business area, and in other areas, very tailored programs. And we don't think that they've been operating optimally. So I think what you're asking me for is what we're already down that path, and we used the appropriations process to get the federal government to focus on the issues that you are concerned about. I'll go back and double check to make sure that what you are talking about is what we're already doing. If not, then we'll either adjust the current study or we'll do another one as we can. So if Tim, if you could get Mr. Kaupico's information, we'll figure that one out. Okay, I'm afraid that we are at 10:30, and we just have to get off from a logistical perspective. We're going to lose our various logistical connections here. I just wanted to again apologize that I wasn't able to do this personally. The logistics are not as good as in person, and I don't like to do it this way. But I appreciate your kukua on that. I'd be interested in what your input is on whether this actually worked, because again, I'm in DC 6 months of the year, and so if this works okay, then I'll try it out maybe another time, and if we can improve it, the audio needs to be improved. But other than that, if it worked okay, let us know on your way out. Any other questions or comments that you have? Any needs that you have? We have a bunch of follow-up for folks that asked questions. We will follow up with you. And for those of you that may want our assistance but didn't want to get up and talk about it, please see my staff on the way out, or else contact us. And then for the folks that are out there listening on Facebook Live, again, best way into my office is case.house.gov, case.house.gov, or call my district office at 808-650-6688. Thank you again. Thank you so much for your service. As we heard today, some of that service was very, very difficult, and the consequences are long-lasting, life-lasting afterwards. And your country has a great debt to you, not only for your service, but for the promises and obligations and undertakings we've made for you and your ohana. And my challenge is to make sure we have those programs correct, that they are fully funded, and that they are actually helping you as best we can. I definitely look forward to working with you on all of these areas. Again, appreciate very much your time this morning. and for your country and for your for all of the people that I represent in Hawaii. And for all of Hawaii, I think I can fairly say that as we come up on Veterans Day, we're so deeply grateful again that you served your country and recognize our obligations to you. So with that, mahalo and have a great rest of your weekend. Aloha.